Good morning, gamers. It is time to talk about the Drow. The Drow as a playable character species or race, and the Drow as a character class. So yes, you may have heard of this old school thing called race as class, which means that while you could play a Drow fighter or a Drow magic user, Drow bard, whatever the case may be, you can also be a Drow. Drow tend to be more like fighter magic users. So it's a combination that kind of puts those two together. And you can find this in the Old School Essentials Advanced book, link in the doodly-doo below. So as we make our way through the Old School Essentials book, yesterday we did the Bard, today we're doing the Drow, tomorrow we do the Druid. And once we get through the Old School Essentials Advanced book, we're going to move on to the Old School Essentials Carcass Crawler magazines, and we've got stuff beyond that. So Drow first appeared in AD&D First Edition in an actual printed book in the First Edition Fiend Folio, and they've only increased in popularity from there. So they first appeared as a player character, presented in a player character type of way. In the First Edition Unearthed Arcana. And in those days, Drow are based on the idea of the Dark Elves from Svartalfheim, from Norse mythology. And of course, D&D has created its own mythology about LOFT and how LOFT led the Dark Elves away from the Light Elves of Corellon and Lorethian back in the ancient days of the D&D multiverse and stuff like that. But Drow have really kind of come a long way. About the days of First and Second Edition, the Forgotten Realms novels were a big thing, and a certain author named R.A. Salvatore was tapped to write about a particular Drow named Drizzt Do'Urden. And then the fascination. I mean, in those days I was in college, and First Edition had just turned into Second Edition. And there were so many player character good aligned Drow. I mean, like, every party had one. When I was in the game shop's basement, there were 4 or 5 tables, 4 or 5 different D&D games going on all at once. And not only was there, a good alignment Drow, like a Drizzt copycat at my table, but there was a Drizzt copycat at every other table across the basement as well. And I thought, well, if this is a sampling of the whole culture of D&D right now, it's just, Drizzt copycat mania. Not that there's anything wrong with that. When I like something, I like it, and I like to play it too. The idea, though, was that, Drizzt Do'Urden being a good alignment Drow was like a 1 in a million thing. Like, he had it, it's super, super rare. But, of course, fans like what they like, and if something's cool, it's cool. So eventually we got to, in the lore and everything, eventually we got to where we are today. So in the lore of the Forgotten Realms, they're, back in First and Second Edition days, in the cultures of Greyhawk and Forgotten Realms and stuff, if a Drow was seen on the surface, they were killed on sight. They were, the Drow worship demons. They have chaotic evil abyss worship centering on LOFT. Drow priestesses conjure Glabrezu and there's all sorts of just demonic sacrifices, and Drow are generally not nice people. In the Homeland trilogy of novels, R.A. Salvatore and the people with Forgotten Realms, in charge of Forgotten Realms lore at the time, they tried to outline what the city of Menzoberranzan was like, and what it would be like to actually have a chaotic, evil society. How could a society function if the main major alignment of all the people in the society itself was chaotic evil? Not that every individual is chaotic evil, but on the whole, because there's always going to be individuals, but on the whole, if everyone's chaotic evil, or the whole system's chaotic evil, how does that even play out to even have a civilization? So it's very, very cutthroat. Very nasty, very deadly. And so I read those books when they came out, and I actually had to read them as they came out. So when there was a trilogy, I'd read the first one, and I'd have to wait for the second one, and then I'd have to wait for the third one to be released. So Yes, I read my trilogies uphill both ways, barefoot in the snow, and I liked it because I'm an oldster. But so these days in the Forgotten Realms, there are all kinds of Drow running around on the surface. There are accepted Drow adventurers. There's NPCs like Jarlaxla and stuff like that. Drow these days, when the people who have the mainstream name brand version of our game, are up to 5th edition, up to 6th edition, headed to 6th edition next year, whatever they decide to call their 6th edition. But these days in the lore, the Drow are, at least in Forgotten Realms, are accepted. They may not be well liked, but they are, they're a thing. So the Drow here for the LOFT project. Now, the main world for the LOFT project is Mystara. There are not necessarily Drow native to Mystara. There are Shadow Elves that are not Drow. They're going to get their own video soon. Definitely not Drow. Never heard of LOFT. Probably don't want to hear about LOFT. Speaking of not wanting to hear about LOFT, one of the things that is part of the expanded Drow lore that's come down through the years is that there are Drow that have just found other gods to worship. They've found other belief systems. There's other Drow that have turned away from LOFT and tried to base, different types of societies than the stereotype main original LOFT-based demon worship society. And so so if you want to play a Drow on the LOFT project, we've got a couple options for you. One of them is that really wouldn't break the game if some of these Drow who wanted to set up colonies or cities or settlements away from the LOFT-centered Drow, if some of them found their way to Mystara, that would not break the game. And probably you'd get mistaken for a Shadow Elf. Most Mystara commoners, most Mystara even learned academic people have never heard of a Drow. They would take one look at a Drow and say, oh, it's a Shadow Elf, okay. And Shadow Elves are not necessarily liked or whatever, but Shadow Elves can exist on the surface. They have a country on the surface world. Like I said, Shadow Elves are going to get their own video at some point. But yeah, the point here for Drow, yeah, you can play a Drow in Mystara. Or next month, there is a game master coming on board. He is the game master who taught me how to GM. And he's going to be centering on Greyhawk. And Greyhawk's like the Gary Gygax original Drow place. So there are definitely Drow there. Drow are cool. I don't necessarily play them. They don't necessarily appeal to me as a player. But I have all kinds of Drow NPCs that I've DM'd over the years. And there's been all kinds of really cool players at the table who have played Drow over the years. So yes, Drow are a thing, and they were a thing before Drizzt Do'Urden. They've been a bigger thing ever since Drizzt Do'Urden. So in the meantime, I'm going to start to sign off here, but today I am announcing that we are doing we're accepting fan art submissions for some of the art that we put up on these YouTube videos and other places. So if if you'd like to show off your art on our YouTube channel during one of these videos, just contact me on Discord. Links in the doodly-doo below. You can definitely play with us. I'm getting ready to pull the trigger on our Indiegogo, which I retooled yesterday. That link's down below if you want to see the draft of the Indiegogo. There's a survey you can take to give us some feedback. There's our social media stuff down there. So come by, say hi, play some games with us. Tomorrow we'll get to the Druid, and in the meantime, I will see you around the game table.